The Indianapolis Colts did it again, albeit in very dramatic fashion, defeating the Denver Broncos at Lucas Oil Stadium. So, what kind of performances are we going to discuss on this show with such a close game, leading the team to 2-0? What sort of outcomes might be transferred right into week 3 against the Tennessee Titans? And which players do you, the fans, think showed out the most and deserve to be talked about? Well, let's discuss it right here, right now. Welcome to the Horseshoe Huddle Podcast, as always presented by Indianapolis Colts on SI.com. I'm Drake Wally, co-deputy editor for the site, co-host of the show, Noah Gebert, analyst for the site, fellow co-host of this program. I can't even describe the game, really, Noah. It was incredible. If you're looking for excitement, that's the kind of game you want to see.
Yeah.
But I'll just ask you this. What do you make of this game? The Colts come out on top. Should they have? Who knows? We'll talk about it. But how you doing, man? The Colts are now 2-0 for the first time since 2009 when Peyton Manning, a guy some of you might know, led the team to a Super Bowl.
Yeah, and I guess that's all that matters is that number 2-0. You're not going to be thinking about this win when you're getting to week 15, 16, 17 of the season when it's really the dog days of the season and you're trying to make that postseason push. You're going to be happy with this result, but you're not going to be thinking about how that went down at the beginning, whether you deserved it, whether you didn't. The bottom line is they came out 2-0, and it's 2 wins against 2 AFC teams, which is going to help you in tiebreaker situations down the road, especially probably with this Broncos team, which is going to be another team that's probably going to be fighting for a wild card spot that you might be in the running for as well. So, yeah. Did they deserve it? We're probably going to get a lot into that as we dive into a couple of these sections here. I think one side of the ball deserved it a lot more than the other side of the ball, and who knows if the coaching deserved to come away with a win here. But regardless, you start 2-0 and you take that all day.
Yeah, no one's going to complain, and I don't think that they should. But I do love what Teresa Willis-Johnson here says. By the way, Super Pony Tony, Camacho Joe, thank you so much for joining into the show here. I'm sure the CFO is somewhere cooking up absolutely ridiculous super chats about his ex-wife. Those are going to be exciting to see. But I love this one here. What a cardiac Colts game it was. Of course, that was a team back in the day that just could not put on an absolute, adrenaline raising type of performance, and no game they wouldn't blow anyone out. They wouldn't get blown out. They would just be right on the, teetering on losing or winning, and would come out on top more often than not. Teresa, I don't know about the AFC champs. Not yet. There's a long way to go before the Colts are calling themselves AFC champs. But yeah, Noah, there's just something before we even get into the real subject matter here. There's just something about this team, the feel. We in the media were really under the impression that this could be a team that they're bringing Daniel Jones in, of course, to compete with Anthony Richardson. Then when he got named the starter, I wrote a piece called "Why the Colts Have Failed Anthony Richardson," and I was very much behind. They're saving face here. Like, Steichen has to have a quarterback that can complete passes. That's why he's picking Daniel Jones. And then, of course, you had those, which these are ridiculous, but they showed Shane Steichen naming the captains, right? And everyone was just like, woof, there wasn't a lot of gusto.
Yeah.
It's like, man, if somebody told me, hey, you got a $1 pay raise, what am I going to do at my day job? Am I going to go, go, baby? It's their job. They do this every day, and they knew who the captains were going to be. People were like, well, Shane Steichen has no energy in that locker room. There was so much going into this year, but everything is different than what the narratives were. Dude, Daniel Jones is playing the best football I have ever seen him play. And I'm not joking. And that's not biased. Shane Steichen is the offense is running over people. They're just moving the ball at will. There's obviously some issues with scoring, touchdowns, but you have the skill to work that out. And then most important of all, they're winning games, man. And they started off the year with 2 home games, which sounds great, but that means the pressure's on to win in front of your home crowd. And they've done that. So before we even get started here, what's your opinion on just the overall feel? Because I'm going to be honest, I can't remember a Colts team that has had this type of aura around them since they went to the playoffs in Andrew Luck's last season.
Yeah, and I said that going into this game. It's been a long time since we've seen a confident Colts team, and was kind of wondering if that confidence was going to fade out and fizzle out after that week 1 domination, and they were going to have that hangover and not come out and perform as well as they did in week 1 going into week 2. But I mean, at least one side of the ball did, and that was enough to get you the win. And winning cures everything. You mentioned that the clips of Shane Steichen naming captains and Daniel Jones getting the nod and not a lot of excitement. It pales in comparison to what you see on the sideline at the end of the game this past week with Quentin Nelson and Tyler Warren and Daniel Jones doing that group hug on the sideline. Everyone's super excited. Tons of energy from the defense. Cam Bynum in the celebrations and just after game, post-game celebration. Everybody running out onto the field, lifting Spencer Schrader onto their shoulders at the end of the game.
Awesome.
I mean, that's
like a Rudy moment.
Yeah, I mean, and this is like those aren't moments we've seen with the Colts in the past. Even these close wins haven't resulted in this kind of aura that you've been mentioning of just how confident they are, how much they're playing differently. Jonathan Taylor going after the game in his post-game interview saying that it feels like this team just has something a little bit extra that he hasn't had on teams in the past. So yeah, you want to see the team gelling like that. You wonder how far that's going to take you. I mean, obviously there's got to be that base level of talent, but it seems like for the first few weeks, we've seen that baseline level of talent, at least in one instance on the defensive side of the ball. And they're here 2 weeks in a row on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah. And, regardless, okay, we'll kind of get to the chaotic ending, but this Colts team went toe to toe with Sean Payton. And we were talking about, Vance Joseph and Lou Anarumo. I was under the impression this thing was going to be a slog. I thought that the defenses were going to rule the day. And my God, man, Payton beat the tar out of Anarumo's scheme. And Steichen just continuously, kept challenging with deep shots.
Yeah.
He was having Jones sling the pill down the field, which is insane. That's not something I've ever seen him do consistently. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and get to just that. The chaotic ending. So just so that everyone is aware here, Indianapolis. Okay. So this was their final drive. They ran the ball. 2-minute warning. They ran the ball. They threw it to Alec Pierce, but then they ran it again. And then Jonathan Taylor lost 2 yards for Spencer Schrader to be set up with a very manageable 60-yard field goal.
Yeah.
With no big deal, just the entire game on the line.
Yeah.
You had been throwing. I mean, Taylor had 25 carries, right? But you had been throwing consistently and picking up completions. And I just didn't understand this. I thought that it was very vanilla. Shane Steichen had called a Shakespearean-like game up to that point. And you do that to end it. You just throw Jonathan Taylor into a box of 4 linebackers? I mean, the Broncos weren't fooling. They didn't think that they were going to get fooled, or they didn't think Jonathan Taylor was going to get the ball. They really didn't. They were just trying to challenge Steichen to throw it instead. And what's your opinion on that? Because Steichen addressed it later, kind of said that, he might have done something different. But just very weird. And you played right into the defense's hands, honestly.
Yeah. It was interesting and kind of the antithesis of what Shane Steichen's been throughout the first 2 weeks, or really his tenure in Indianapolis. He's been a super aggressive coach in terms of going for it on 4th down, not punting, and really taking advantages of some of these situations. Even in week 1 when they were against the Dolphins, they could have kicked a field goal to make it a 3-possession game near the end of the game, and that pretty much would have all but sealed it. They still went for it on 4th down there. And you saw the complete opposite here of just the ultimate conservative play calls that you went. To put your kicker in a really dangerous situation where he's lining up for that first kick. And in my mind, I'm like, if he misses, it's not even his fault. There's no way I'm going to be upset with Spencer Schrader for missing a 60-yard field goal.
It was off on the left hash too.
Yeah, he shouldn't have been in that situation to begin with. I don't know if it was he mentioned in his post-game interview, Shane Steichen did, the being afraid of the kickoff return being an option for them to score on, and him wanting to limit that. And I don't know, just like Brian Mason's special teams units have been giving up quite a few yards on kick returns. Maybe that is something you should be worried about, but not so much to the extent that you put your kicker in that situation. And also, the Colts defense did not have a great day against the Broncos offense. So maybe you are worried whoever touches the ball last is going to be the one that ultimately ends up coming away with the victory. So you wanted to see the clock hit 0 as you kick that field goal. I understand that line of thinking entirely, but you can't be okay with the 60-yard field goal to accomplish that. I would have much rather kicked a 50-yarder with 14 seconds left on the clock. If that is your worst case scenario, I think you're doing pretty good. I think Shane Steichen got a little bit too much in his own head, trying to play keep away from an offense that it seemed like he was scared of, and admitted that as much. So I can accept the fact that he came out today in his presser and saying that, probably he should have been a little bit more aggressive. I wouldn't expect him to be otherwise, just because he's not been a conservative coach throughout his time in Indianapolis. And the one time that he did, that had a really big chance of coming back to bite him. So him recognizing that, I think is something we can accept, the fact that, hey, he's still a pretty experienced head coach or inexperienced head coach in the NFL. We'll live with some of these situations if it results in wins, and it resulted in a win this past week, even though it probably should not have.
Yeah, and Spencer Schrader so far has looked every bit of a legit kicker. Okay. And when you consider that the Colts have stalled their drives in the red zone, and he's just gone out there and he's put up the points. I mean, he had 17 points in this game. Like, that's a lot. That's really.
I think he's 9 for 9 in the NFL, so tied for first in field goal percentage, and I think that's the most kicks, field goals made in the NFL at this point. So that's good, but not something you want to rely on from 60 plus. I mean, most of his field goals this year have been from short, because you've mentioned that inefficiency in the red zone.
Yeah, and I mean, the offense has also been able to put him in really good spots to kick. But yeah, I won't lie. When I was watching the game, after that last play was ran, I'm like, you're banking on your kicker, who has been legit as hell, but like, unless it's like Brandon Aubrey or like somebody who's shown that they can knock in a 60+ yard field goal, or even in the high 50s. I don't care, even if it's a guy like Harrison, but in fact, I don't even care if it is Brandon Aubrey. If you're putting your kicker in a position when you could have moved the ball farther to kick a 60-yard field goal to win, that's just insane. But of course, he whiffs it. Everyone's heart's broken. But then you see a flag, and it's almost never on the offense whenever it's a kick. So then you get word that somebody used Luke Rhodes as kind of like a platform, pushed him down with leverage, and then allowed an opening to try to block the kick. And then you're thinking, Spencer, you better make this one, because you're getting a second chance, and it's dead on from 45.
Yeah.
And I mean, he hasn't just barely made these kicks, guys. He's hit them pretty much all right down the middle. And he did that too. So he's got the clutch gene. I know that he missed that 60-yarder, but I'd be hard-pressed to find a kicker that's just going to knock that down most of the time in that situation. Yeah. So what's your opinion on Spencer Schrader? Because we were both befuddled when they allowed Matt Gay to walk. Of course, he's going over to the Commanders and struggling immensely. So what are your thoughts on Spencer Schrader? Because so far he has been the engine behind Indy's points. He really has.
Yeah. Super impressed with that. And if you feel comfortable sending your kicker out for a 60-yard field goal, then you feel good about the kicker in general. So that's a good situation. I mean, even if you say, they lost a couple yards on that last run to Taylor because they're running into a 9 or 10 man box on that play, which is crazy in itself. Even if you don't think you're going to lose yards and you think you're going to pick up 1 or 2, you're still settling for a 56, 57-yard field goal at that point. They were definitely confident in what they thought Spencer Schrader could do there. And he missed that 60-yarder. I said before the snap, I'm like, not even going to be upset if you miss the 60-yarder. There's no situation where I would expect that to be the outcome. And then, I mean, even that 45-yarder, I think that's a super difficult situation to come back from. Game on the line, 60 yards, you miss it. That I feel like does a lot to your mental. And I'm just really really happy that he was able to reset entirely and hit that one down the middle for 45, which, I mean, you always hope that he can make a 45-yard field goal, but just that situation that you were in and the craziness before it made that a little bit more murky, a little bit more foggy, to the point where if he missed that 45-yarder, I would have been like, yeah, Shane Steichen, well-deserved that he missed that 45-yarder. You didn't deserve the bailout that you got there. So, I that was just the emotional fan in me at that point, watching that into the game, just being so upset with the play calling that was going into that drive that I was like, they don't even deserve it at this point. But good to see him come out with it and see all the players, rally around him, throw him on their shoulder. I mean, you didn't see those moments from Matt Gay. The Ravens game 2 years ago, where he kicked a ton. That was that great game there. But yeah, I mean, you were worried about Matt Gay from those longer kicks. So even if you had Matt Gay on the roster, I don't think you were. Maybe that was a situation. If you had Matt Gay on the roster, you weren't settling for a 56, 57-yard field goal, and you would have been a little bit more aggressive. Really would have loved to see Shane Steichen stay a little bit more aggressive there. But yeah, you can't give enough kudos to Spencer Schrader for coming through in the clutch, at least on that second try, when I think, honestly, that second try is just as difficult as the first, just because of the situation surrounding it.
Yeah, and, while we're on the subject of special teams, I want to highlight something that is just crazy. Rigoberto Sanchez, second straight week where he went to St. Elmo's to get a steak. This dude is just sitting on the sideline and not punting at all as a top 5 punter in the NFL.
Yeah. And hey, that's not entirely fair, because he did punt the one time in the Dolphins game and drew that running into the kicker penalty. So he did take a hit for his team. Didn't go on the stat sheet, but he took one for the team to extend that streak. So
that is very fair. But this whole situation, okay, that was more of like a funny thing. But I mean, Spencer Schrader, man, I'm just like you, wildly impressed, really excited, because as we've discussed, the Colts beat the ever-loving crap out of the Dolphins, but then the Dolphins just lost to the Patriots. Okay, yeah. That is a team that I fully expect Mike McDaniel to be gone by at least the end of the year, or maybe shortly after. So I don't really look at that point differential anymore. But you're going to be in situations like this, like you were on Sunday, multiple times this year.
Yeah.
Okay, you run the ball. I know Jones is playing great, but there's going to be a game where a defense they're going to hit him with a wall. Okay, and the Colts are going to have to fight through it, and they're going to have these games where it's neck and neck, and Spencer Schrader's going to have to go out there and win with his leg.
Yep.
And so this was very, very awesome. I know there's people that will say, well, he missed it. And honestly, they should have lost the game. They should have. But like Noah said, it might have been 45 yards, 45 feet closer, but the dude had to say, okay, I just whiffed badly, by the way, a 60-yard game-winning field goal. I got to go make this one now. And he just put it right through the freaking pipe. I mean, I'm excited to see what Spencer Schrader is going to do for this team. So, but this next one, I do like that Noah put this one up. So there were injuries, right? There were a lot of narratives going into this game, especially for the defense. And, you had this incredibly talented Broncos roster, but there were guys that really stood out as surprise performers, guys that you knew could do it. You didn't expect to do it on the level that they did necessarily. And then there's just other guys that are, showing that they could be potential stars with Indianapolis. So we're going to go ahead and bounce back and forth some surprising performers. So I'll go ahead and start here. A guy that really stood out to me, and I don't even know if it's necessarily surprising, but he's just taking off, and it shows that the Colts being patient with him was the right move. And for me, it's Nick Cross. Nick Cross has just – I mean, he tied 3 ways with Grover Stewart and Joe Bocci for the lead in tackles, but he had a key pass breakup. He was all over their ground game. I mean, Noah, Nick Cross looks legit as hell. I mean, he looks like he is building just fine off of last year when he made 146 freaking tackles or something. So that's one guy that I was really impressed with. What are your thoughts on Nick Cross? And then who's somebody, that you felt like, wow, not necessarily I wasn't expecting that, but that
Yeah.
did kind of surprise me against such a tough team. Because this is a playoff team that the Colts just beat. They're a playoff team.
Yeah, and we'll start with Nick Cross, just going there and just somebody that you came into the season. I was a little bit skeptical. He put together one good year under Gus Bradley this past season, and you were really happy to see that. He was a young guy. You were glad that he finally stepped into a role. The Colts allowed him to stay in one role, and he was able to excel there. And I was just a little bit skeptical with the scheme change and the amount of communication on the back end, just a little bit how much more complex Lou Anarumo's scheme has proven to be, just even through the first 2 weeks of the season compared to Gus Bradley. And he's really handled that far and above the expectations that I had for him. I think, even not even just maintaining the level of play that he had last year. I think he's taken one step up above that. I always kind of thought he was more of this box safety, which I think he still is, but has shown some really good ability in coverage, not being a liability there. In either of the 2 weeks, especially this past week, I thought was really strong in coverage. So yeah, that's somebody that this whole defensive back room got reworked, right? And you kept Kenny Moore and Nick Cross as the only starters going into this year. You're really happy, I think, with both of their performances. You weren't so worried about Kenny Moore. He's been doing it in the league for a long time. Everyone kind of thought, hey, this scheme makes a lot of sense for Kenny Moore because the way Mike Hilton was used in Cincinnati. But yeah, it's just a scheme that hasn't really relied on young safeties in the past. And Nick Cross has proven that, he's still a young guy, and has only really had one proven year in the NFL, but has come out really strong these first 2 weeks to be really the bright spot on what was a disappointing performance by the defense all around.
Yeah. And, before you give yours, at one point, I really did think, I was like, they traded up for this guy. And it's the typical, Chris Ballard athletic freak. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, I will tell you right now that safeties are built, I think that they're built tougher than a cornerback typically.
Yeah.
Unless it's Jalen Ramsey, and then you're the size of a fucking tight end. Nick Cross is built – he is built like a Mack truck. I've seen him in camp. The dude, his biceps are as big as my head. Like, the guy is huge. And I was just thinking, Chris Ballard, got blown away by all these athletic traits this guy showed with the Maryland Terrapins. And, he struggled his first couple of years. He wasn't really featured much. Threw him out there way too early. Rodney McLeod took over his position. And then you were really, excited about last year because of all the things he did. But there's just I feel like I was watching a veteran safety. I really did. He was penetrating the gaps. He was avoiding blockers. He was literally just sifting through all the BS, like the linemen, the tight ends, all the guys that are like polling with J.K. Dobbins. I think it was J.K. Dobbins. And he just cut right through it all and made a beautiful tackle. He just kept on showing why the Colts have waited on this kid and why they decided that first year, hey, you're not ready. We thought you were, but it's okay. You're not ready. And so they benched him, and I'm wildly impressed. But anyway, who's somebody that stood out to you that you weren't necessarily expecting to have a prominent role in this one?
Yeah, so, and we can get more into this when we go into the different sides of the ball. I was really trying to look for an offensive performer that was surprising, which you think would be easier because the offense performed really well. But I think we're kind of expecting that. I'm not going to say Daniel Jones. We could talk about him in the offensive side of the ball. I think that was surprising just because he did it for a second straight week. Jonathan Taylor, great performance. You expect that. Josh Downs, great performance. You expect that. Tyler Warren, after week one, I was expecting that. The offensive line, I thought, played not as well as they did in week one, but still pretty well all around.
You expect it, though.
Yeah. So I'm going to flip back to the defensive side of the ball in the same position group you were at with the defensive backs. And I'm actually going to say Mekhi Blackmon surprised me with how well he held up. They really just picked on one corner for the Colts, and we know who that was. And we'll definitely get into that when we talk about the defensive side of the ball. But I thought Blackmon held his own. I think if you've got Charvarius Ward coming back next week, you need to start having a real conversation about Mekhi Blackmon being your starter on the outside going forward. Mm-hmm. If you don't have Jalen Jones and you're not going to want to rely on Xavier Howard going forward, then maybe Charvarius Ward, Mekhi Blackmon, Kenny Moore. Those are your three corners going forward. And you can kind of use Jonathan Edwards as a guy that can rotate in on the outside spots. But yeah, Mekhi Blackmon, I felt like performed really well in pass coverage, had that one key pass breakup. on third down down the right side of the field. Where he was just kind of smothering Cortland Sutton down there. So I was, really pleased with the performance we got out of Mekhi Blackmon. I knew that the corners were probably going to be an issue and the Broncos were going to want to attack them. They did, but not both of them, like we thought might be the case.
Yeah, and, it was really, really encouraging because, before that season-ending ACL tear, Mekhi Blackmon, like, he's not a household name. When the Colts traded for him, people were just like, well, this is just a guy because the Colts need a guy, right? Like, this is just a dude. I'm telling you, Justin Wally, Mekhi Blackmon, Xavier Howard, Charvarius Ward, Cam Bynum, all 5 of those names are probably with the Colts because of one man, and that's Lou Anarumo. Okay? He campaigned for all those guys. The Colts respect this man enough that they went out and got them all. Okay? And they give Indianapolis credit. All right, we'll get into the defensive side of things here for the defensive segment, but they rolled with the punches, Noah. Yep. They really did. They kept losing guys, and they just kept rolling with the punches. And I'm really impressed. Like you said, I love that you said Mekhi Blackmon because I'm looking right here. Cortland Sutton was an absolute zero factor. Yep. He was nothing. Now, there is something Noah said that I got to give him his flowers on. He said he felt like there would be a Marvin Mims touchdown.
Yeah, immediately.
And
Mims touchdown.
He absolutely. In fact, as soon as that happened, I was like, I bet that dude is like, I knew it.
Keep giving me some flowers though, because didn't I predict them winning by 1 also? So.
Oh, look at that, man!
Spot on.
Noah, you need to get yourself on FanDuel more often, man. This dude would make a killing.
The only issue is it happened in the ways that I didn't expect it to happen. I didn't expect it to be. Going into that first half, when no one was looking for a Daniel Jones Bo Nix shootout, and that's kind of looks like how it was looking for the first half of the game. So yeah. Maybe I was right on a couple of those things. To be fair, I did say a 30-yard touchdown for Mims, and it was under 30. So I didn't get it all right. And definitely, that's luck of the draw. Like, you're not always going to get that. I just knew the corners were going to be a pressing point. And yeah, we'll get into that, like we said, when we get to the defensive side of the ball. But it was one corner in that instance, and it was continuously that corner throughout the rest of the game.
Yeah, before we do jump over there, I will say Mekhi Blackmon, 3rd highest coverage grade behind Nick Cross and Cam Bynum, and he was on 57 total snaps, 34 in coverage.
It's almost 100%. I think 59 was all of them. So
yeah, so that's something to monitor. Mekhi Blackmon could just be a dog. He could just be a dude that works out. So we're going to go ahead and talk about the offense now. I'm so excited to discuss the offense. I'm just going to throw out a stat. So Denver, they pressured Cam Ward in week 1 28 times. I think he threw 28 passes. Wow. And they sacked him 6. They went out there and they pressured Daniel Jones 23 times, actually. Still incredible. But he only got sacked once. He delivered in the face of those pressures more often than not. And Indianapolis, ladies and gentlemen, put on a clinic because their team stats, Denver had 324 total yards. Indianapolis, 473, 306 passing, 167 rushing. Noah, that's an offensive clinic. You're talking about 26 first downs. In a nutshell, what'd you think of this? Because I sure as hell did not expect the Indianapolis Colts to put up sub 500 total yards on what looks at times like a number 1 defense in the NFL.
Yeah, and there's a lot of different ways that we can attack this in the ways that it's both impressive and maybe a little bit of a letdown from last week. I feel like what we expected from Daniel Jones after week 1 was that, hey, he's not going to make some of these throws that he ended up making in week 1. You can't always bank on that. Well, here's another week where he went out and he made some big time throws. He was really, really good against the blitz. When he was under pressure, he seemed like he was firing, making all the right reads and throwing the ball accurately. You didn't see a lot of those misfires. You saw a couple of them in week 1 that screened Michael Pittman that went about 7 yards over his head, that A.D. Mitchell misfire on third down where he hit him a little low and didn't let him get the yards after the catch. He was pretty spot on accurate this entire game, especially that play. Pat Surtain was right there on Michael Pittman. I think Pat Surtain even got a pinky on it, and it just went right into Pittman's hands. That was confidence, and it was pinpoint accuracy. Those are throws that you want to see him make, and those are the throws that you probably wouldn't see if you were seeing another quarterback on the roster making those throws. So that's the reason that he ended up winning this job is his ability to run this offense efficiently, and he did that through 2 straight weeks. And he's out there making plays that you kind of expect there to be a little bit of a regression or a fall off at some point, but until we see it, I'm not going to keep banking on that happening. He's winning in ways that seem pretty sustainable. I mean, he's not going out there and hitting on a ton of low percentage throws. These deep balls, I mean, that deep ball to Alec Pierce that he hit on is maybe a little bit low percentage, but when you're throwing to Alec Pierce, I think it's a little bit higher than if you're targeting any other receiver in the NFL. So yeah, the ways that he's just keeping this offense efficient, it seems like it's something that you can continue doing without having to rely on luck too much, and just him being able to operate at the line of scrimmage and making all these play calls and all these checks. It seems like he's processing things and making the correct reads, just operating at a really, really high level. Yeah, I'm just really surprised with what we're seeing from Daniel Jones and want to see that continue. You mentioned he's playing better than you've ever seen him play before. I think this is 2 straight weeks where he's reached a record of yards in the first half. I think he was over 200 yards in the first half. This game threw for over 300. I feel like, man, it's been a while since we've seen a quarterback throw for 300 yards for the Colts, and something that you can consistently kind of bet on. Even in a game where we were like, yeah, hey, the running attack is going to be the primary focus of this offense. I don't know if it is anymore. Which is crazy to say when you have 165 yards from Jonathan Taylor, and you're still like, hey, the passing attack might still be the way that you want to attack most people. Yeah, it's just crazy how it was firing on both cylinders. I'm not sure that the running game would have worked as well if it wasn't Jonathan Taylor. I think Jonathan Taylor's just another next level of athlete that takes things a little bit higher. So maybe that's the more explosive part of your game. It seems like is him being able to break off those explosive runs while you do rely on Daniel Jones to be your consistent first down getter.
Yeah, and I love that you said that you brought up that you don't know if the ground attack would have been as potent without the passing attack. Yet again, the Colts came out and they threw the crap out of the ball.
Yep.
They did not lean on Taylor early to open up the passing game. They did the exact reverse.
Yeah.
And Jones, look, you don't do that in the NFL if you are not confident in your quarterback. That's just not what you do. You don't go out there and lead with the pass. And something else that's really awesome, and I don't know how many people are aware of this. The Tennessee Titans were terrified of going after Pat Surtain. Every team should be, because he will knock away your passes. He'll run the routes of your receivers for him. He will stunt your receiver at the line of scrimmage. He's got physicality, speed, hands, reactiveness, ability to take the ball away. He is the reigning defensive player of the freaking year. And that doesn't happen often for cornerbacks. A lot of times it's a linebacker or a defensive edge, or, like a Fred Warner type or a Nick Bosa type, to use some 49ers. The Colts peppered the crap out of Pat Surtain. They were targeting him. It looked like a game plan that is like, wherever 2 is, find him and throw the ball. And it really put Denver in a – if I'm Vance Joseph, I'm thinking they're completing passes with Pat Surtain on their receivers. The one that really impressed me was the low ball to A.D. Mitchell. Pat Surtain, here's him, here's Mitchell. They both fall. He's like a fire blanket on this dude.
Yeah.
That's how good this man is. And he still completes the pass, and he's got a hand on the ball. But Mitchell's got both. I couldn't believe it. You're taking Danny Dimes here, and you're having this man that hasn't been able to have a damn bit of success in the NFL, and you're having him throw at the most dangerous cornerback in the league with a second-year receiver that didn't have a great rookie season, and it works. And it was incredible. I mean, I'm looking at the stats here. Daniel Jones found 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different targets. Tyler Warren, Alec Pierce, and Michael Pittman had 4 catches. Josh Downs had 6, Jonathan Taylor with 2, A.D. Mitchell with 2, Mo Alley Cox had 1. It's not just one dude. I mean, they're hitting everybody, even second string tight ends. And Jonathan Taylor had one of the biggest plays of the game off of a catch. Yeah. I can't believe I'm saying this, but they are using Jonathan Taylor as a receiving threat too. And it's like, what the hell has happened to this offense? Nobody could have foreseen this. Not one analyst could have been out there telling me that Daniel Jones was going to be 2-0. He was going to have 2 touchdown passes, 3 rushing scores, not a single interception, not a single fumble, running the offense like a well-oiled machine, beating the tar out of a defensive coordinator like Vance Joseph, and keeping guys like Nick Bonito and Zach Allen and all those dudes at bay. Daniel Jones's ability to spread the wealth, I think that might be the most impressive ability. And then I do have to say, Alec Pierce, 4 catches, 68 receiving yards on 5 targets, had a long of 44. That means the other 3 were for like 24 yards. So he showed he can actually kind of get it done outside of just running deep routes. Daniel Jones has completely changed the approach to this team, and multiple guys are getting involved every game, and I don't see it changing. I really don't.
Yeah, there's a lot of things you hit on there. So I will first want to focus on Pat Surtain. I love that you brought that up. And then Jonathan Taylor, you mentioned that. I think he deserves his own little slice. I definitely want to give him that because the way that his game has evolved has been super impressive from his last few years. But yeah, let's hit on the Pat Surtain piece. I think if you're a defense and you've got a guy that's that talented, I think you have the propensity to kind of leave him on one side and roll your safety help, roll some linebacker help over to the other side of the field, which works if you've got a good corner. And and Pat Surtain is by all means a good corner. Even those plays that he was making, or that he was being targeted on, like you mentioned, that blanket coverage on A.D. Mitchell, that one I mentioned about Michael Pittman, where he got a pinky on it before Pittman caught it. I mean, you were attacking that because it was kind of a little bit more isolated, a little bit more solo with Pat Surtain on that side. And I mean, it's just a testament to the pass catchers that you have on this team and your confidence that they can win one-on-one against the defensive player of the year, right? So you throw it to Tyler Warren, he goes up and makes a contested catch against him, that tight coverage catch. Michael Pittman, you mentioned the A.D. Mitchell catch. I mean, just tight. There's just not defense for perfect throw, perfect catch. And you don't expect that out of Daniel Jones, or you haven't really in the past, but that's exactly what you got. I mean, it doesn't really matter who was playing corner there. There wasn't anybody that was going to be able to cover that any more effectively than Pat Surtain was. I don't necessarily think that he was a target because the Colts were confident, hey, we can win one-on-ones against Pat Surtain. I think if you went into the game with that game plan, I think you're a little bit loose in the head. So they went in there and they decided to target him because, hey, we can make some plays here because there's less people in coverage on that side of the ball. We'll take our shots. We're probably not going to win all of them, but I think they probably converted on a higher percentage of those throws than they probably imagined they were going through it. So that's the side of the Pat Surtain piece. It's just one. Yeah, so many guys on the offense that you were able to put one-on-one, and they were able to come down with those plays. Until we see it throughout the season, I mean, it's hard to just say, hey, expect that. Expect Tyler Warren to always win those contested catches. Expect A.D. Mitchell to come down with those balls around his knees and his ankles. But, hey, they've been doing it, and I'm not going to say they're not going to keep doing it if you've got Daniel Jones delivering the ball like he has been. And then we'll move on to Jonathan Taylor, who I think is – we talk about Daniel Jones, obviously, because we didn't see that coming. Jonathan Taylor, I think, doesn't get talked about enough, or hasn't been talked about enough the first 2 weeks of the season, because he's performed well as a runner, and you expect him to perform well as a runner. You know he's a special athlete. Nobody's going to argue that. But he was also the guy that was being taken off the field last season to put Trey Sermon on in passing downs. And he's completely flipped the script on that. Jonathan Taylor, I will say, is a 3-down running back now. Because of the performance that he's had in weeks 1 and 2, as not only, you mentioned a pass catcher, everyone thinks 3rd down running back. Yeah, he's catching the ball out of the backfield, which he hasn't really done in the past at a super consistent level. And he's not getting a ton of targets out of the backfield, but he's converting every opportunity he's gotten out of the backfield as a pass catcher. But the big thing that surprised me is just him stepping up in pass pro. There were multiple blitz pickups this past game, even that he just stonewalls the blitz and gives Daniel Jones some free time to make take a little bit extra time and step up in the pocket and make some of these pinpoint accurate throws that we're lauding him about. A lot of that's happening because you have Jonathan Taylor back there. He's got 25 carries and 2 catches this game, so 27 touches. I think leading into the season, we mentioned, hey, we don't want to see that early in the season because you want to conserve him a little bit. But when he's playing like that, it's hard to take him off the field, especially when he's as effective as he has been on all 3 downs.
Yeah, I mean, I look, Jonathan Taylor, man. I think that what he's showing at this point in his career is that he can continue to improve. He can continue to get better. And I understand that there were years where he did catch some passes. I mean, 30, 36, 37, 40, passes caught for a running back in today's NFL, a starting running back. It's not that crazy. I mean, you look at Devon Achane, he had like 78 catches last year or so, and he didn't even eclipse 1,000 rushing yards. So some of these running backs, they're legit at catching the ball. But I love that you brought up Jonathan Taylor's pass protection because that's been probably the biggest criticism of him. It's not his receiving prowess because all you got to do is get the freaking ball in the dude's hands. The big issue was when he didn't have it in his hands, but he had to do something still. And like you said, he picked up the pass protection. He looked great. I do want to highlight one more thing here. And the penalties were pretty intense. Bernhard Raimann looked pretty rough in this game. The whole Colts offensive line did not perform like they did in week 1, which if you expected them to, you're crazy. Okay. Like you're dealing with a defense that brings a lot of blitzes, and they have a guy named Nick Bonito on the team that will destroy you and other guys as well. But that offensive line only allowed 1 sack on Daniel Jones. And I know Jones gets it out quick. I know Steichen's game plan, this and that. He looked relatively comfortable all game. So the offensive line once again stepped up. But I also do have to give, just Tony Sperano Jr. his flowers because he's had to deal with 2 new offensive linemen at the most important position, which is center, which is the commander. And even when Bernhard Raimann and Braden Smith are getting penalties and they're not exactly having an optimal performance, they still got it done. They still opened up the ground attack. They still gave Daniel Jones time. No, this offensive line, post Kelly and post Fries, so far, they've been as advertised. They really have. They've stepped up, and again, they looked good. Not great, but good wins you a lot of football games if you're the offensive line.
Yeah, you don't necessarily have the weak link that I thought you might see out of one of Gonsalves or Bortolini. And I think more so than not, offensive line is kind of a weak link unit. If you've got 4 really good guys and then somebody that's a complete liability, you're going to have a leaky offensive line because that's who the defense is going to attack. The Colts really don't have that. I think Braden Smith has performed a little bit higher than expectations, especially in terms of pass blocking. We've always known he's been a good run blocker. Quentin Nelson's as good as always. Bernhard Raimann, there's no buyer's remorse from me on my side on Bernhard Raimann. These matchups that he's had these first 2 weeks, to be fair, brutal. You're talking Bradley Chubb and Nick Bonito. These are 2 really good edge rushers. If you're still having an effective offense and he's kind of on an island with these guys, then I think you feel pretty good about his ability to neutralize some of the lesser threats that you're going to face throughout the season. So no worries about that. I think Tanner Bortolini and Matt Gonsalves they've been up and down, right? But they've been overall better than I expected. I think Matt Gonsalves in the run game could use some work, but in the pass game, he's been rock solid. Which is great for the interior pressure. And I think Bortolini's a little bit the opposite, where in pass protection, he can struggle a little bit, but he's really been hitting the second level pretty consistently on these rundowns. So, and then pass protection, I'll mention that missed touchdown to Josh Downs early on in the game. Everyone's talking about, hey, Daniel Jones needs to make that throw. Maybe, yes, but he also could not step it up at all because Bortolini got absolutely manhandled there and pushed back into the quarterback, so he couldn't step into that throw. So that's a situation, just a young player getting bullied a little bit on the offensive line. I think as you get a little bit further on throughout the season, maybe you see that a little bit less.
Yeah, and before I forget about it, Truett Trussler with an absolutely legendary super chat here. Drake, take a drink of Schraderade. I like it, man. I like it. No problem at all, Truett. We're very high on Spencer Schrader already. I mean, it's hard not to be. He's been the fuel, the system of Indy's points. So you're honestly hoping, if anything, that he doesn't have to keep kicking field goals.
No.
Because before we move to the defensive side of the football, that offensive side has been great. But as we've seen them do with other coaches in the past, even with Steichen, without Anthony Richardson, defenses are not as scared of this team. They look at Jonathan Taylor and they're like, okay, this is who we have to see.
Yeah.
And Richardson was, I mean, it's if Jones goes out there and does this kind of performance the rest of the season, he's young enough that the Colts might want to keep him. But I will say this: when Anthony Richardson is down there in the red zone, you're so scared. You're like, okay, this guy, took the head off Jalen Mills of the Jets. This is a guy that's as big as our defensive end rushing him. It's a little different with Jones, but I would love to see some adjustments because you will lose games when you lean on your kicker that much. The Colts should honestly have not been in this position.
Yeah, the red zone efficiency is maybe something you're watching going forward.
Yes.
There's no reason they shouldn't be able to be efficient in the red zone. Daniel Jones, like we mentioned, is hitting some of these throws in really tight windows. That's just the thing you have to continue to do when you're inside the 20s. I think you have playmakers that can go up and make plays for you. You have some interesting pieces on offense in Josh Downs and Tyler Warren, who I think you can game plan and scheme up some exotic looks that give you a little bit more freedom. I think, and Daniel Jones is a guy who can give you some of these RPOs and provide a threat with his legs as well. So there's no reason why they can't pick up the performance in terms of red zone. I think that's just going to come with this system gelling a little bit more together, growing with this quarterback and the whole group gaining some more confidence as the year goes on.
Yeah. I mean, hey, one more thing is like, look, this is us nitpicking. All right. On this show, since we started it, since before Noah's time, we haven't been able to nitpick, okay? We've been straight up saying this team sucks, or this team, the offense was this, or there was never a game, in these last two seasons where you were like, Gus Bradley kicked butt, but Shane Steichen didn't, or Shane Steichen was on fire and Gus wasn't. Or both were fighting on, just firing on all cylinders. It was always like, there's always something left to be desired, right? So me and Noah had to actually, at least with the offense, we'll get to the defense. With the offense, we had to really nitpick because at the end of the day, though, I'm sorry, when you do face a Kansas City, when you face an LA Rams, you're not going to be able to trade field goals like that, okay? Matt Stafford, Pat Mahomes, they're going to win. They're just going to win the game. So you're hoping that changes because don't forget, Daniel Jones is also a red zone quarterback, and he's shown that too. So not a small man. We're going to go ahead and get to the defense. So, Noah, this defense looked bad. Not good. 5 crummy-ass pressures on the quarterback. I think, in fact, I'll go ahead and name them off. It was Adetomo Adebaware, Zaire Franklin, Tyquan Lewis, Samson Ebukam, and Defoe. That's it. Yeah. You had no sacks, none. There was a play where Bo Nix, it was a short to Troy Franklin, but he takes the snap, and instead of like dropping back or like his feet are moving or he's moving at all, he just drops back, stops, and just goes. Just throws the ball. I'm like, this dude was out there. He just took that snap and he was like, you know what? I'm good, bro. He just like took his time. Bo Nix was cooking Indy's defense. I mean, he was kicking the crap out of them. And then on the other side of it, the ground game wasn't as impressive as it was against the Titans, but Bo Nix was not getting pressured at all. And I'm sorry, even if you have Leatu Latu in there, you're probably getting another 2 pressures, maybe a sack. That's not going to work, man. And Denver's offensive line is good, but the Colts are going to face tougher O-lines. And then the last thing is, you know what, we'll get to that in a second, actually, because I think it's going to take some time to talk about an individual I really want to talk about.
Yeah.
But tell me about the defensive line. Not a lot of pressures. Bo Nix in a Sean Payton scheme. I mean, you got to remember what he did for Drew Brees, all right? If you didn't get pressure on Drew Brees, not comparing the two, But if you didn't get pressure on Drew Brees, he would absolutely slice your defense to pieces, okay? You would be so screwed. And that's kind of what Bo Nix did, including a couple of – he threw 3 freaking touchdowns. So clearly Indy's front was not doing enough to get in Bo Nix's face.
Yeah, and I'm glad we spent as long as we did talking about the offense and all the good things about the game. This gives us a little bit less time to talk about the bad, which is good. We don't really want to talk about the bad stuff anyway. We highlighted Nick Cross, Mekhi Blackman, 2 guys that exceeded our expectations. So let's just get into the last 10 minutes of the show, just talking about what we hated when we were watching this game. And it was, we'll start with the defensive front. You mentioned both. You mentioned the defensive front, but I think as much as they were a little bit rough in the passing game, I think they were just as bad in the run game. Colts linebackers, I don't think helped with that either. Lou Anarumo's very game plan specific and opponent specific with what he draws up. And this game plan coming out to face the Broncos offense was a lot different than the game plan that they had against the Dolphins, where they were throwing some exotic blitzes in. It didn't seem like they were as blitz heavy this week against the Broncos because they were kind of relying on dropping these 8 guys back in coverage, flooding these passing lanes to make it a little bit more difficult for Bo Nix to go through his reads. We highlighted in the preview show that he's not really a guy that's going to sit back there and go through a ton of reads. But when you have all that time, you don't have anything else to do in the pocket. You're going to go through the reads, right? So that's what he was doing. Yeah. And
might as well.
Yeah. When you're doing that, you're kind of relying on some of those guys up front to win some of those one-on-one matchups. And you really didn't see that from anybody outside of DeForest Buckner winning some one-on-ones, getting some pressure up the middle. But even when you had that pressure up the middle, his ability to bounce outside and extend the play was still there. So guys like Samson Ebukam, who I highlighted for having a really good game last week. I think as a pass rusher, I think he was below average, and against the run, I think he was atrocious. So really not great there. You want to get a guy in there like Latu to kind of even out the snap count, so you're not relying on him as often. Tyquan Lewis, I thought was a little bit disappointing coming out there too. Kwity Paye, I don't think was giving you much push up front either. So really just kind of disappointing along the defensive front. You didn't see the continuation of performance that you saw from Samson Ebukam in week 1, continuing on into week 2. And maybe you expect that a 30-year-old coming off of an Achilles injury, like we mentioned all throughout training camp, maybe he's not going to be the same guy that we saw in 2023. I think we got a little bit excited in week 1 with him being the pressure leader on the team, but probably a little bit more down to earth with this week 2 performance, and we should probably expect somewhere in the middle of what we saw in the first 2 weeks from him going forward. But you have to do the caveat when you're talking about this defense that they were out Charvarius Ward, they were out Latu. Realistically, if you throw both of those guys in the defense, I'm not sure how much it changes the picture. Yeah, I think you're still starting your weak point there. Xavier Howard, Samson Ebukam, Kwity Paye, Tyquan Lewis. These guys are still getting snaps that weren't really effective for you in the run or the pass game. So I'm not sure that fixes anything. Maybe you would have pulled away one other possession, but just defensive line overall, I think was a little bit disappointing, and that's not something that Latu jumping in is going to fix entirely.
Yeah, and look, it's really simple. This defensive front, they got their asses kicked. You really can't look at it any other way. Even if you're looking at the PFF grades, you're talking about the pass rushing grades. After Defoe at 73, it drops all the way down. And the next even relevant guy on the defensive line is, I'm looking here, it's Tyquan Lewis with 53.1. No one was disgustingly bad, but no one was good. Not good enough anyway. Now, I do have to get to, we need to talk about a cornerback that we said we were worried about, Noah.
Yep.
We weren't talking about this matchup. We were talking about the Dolphins one. And look, man, Charvarius Ward started, and you didn't need a lot of Xavier Howard against the Dolphins. He only played 22 coverage snaps, had no stats. He had a fumble recovery. That's it. And this game, I was thinking, well, he's not facing Jalen Waddle. Yeah. He's not facing Tyreek Hill. He's facing literally Courtland Sutton and a couple of a burner like Marvin Mims. And then Troy Franklin absolutely destroyed the Colts. He looked incredible. Xavier Howard had 3 penalties. I made an X post, which I confidently think is just hilarious. Where I said he is he is hugging defenders like a family member at a Christmas gathering. This guy was, dude, he was like everything. He was pulling on the jersey, pulling on the shoulder pads, hooking guys. I mean, he looked like a 32-year-old that hadn't played football in an entire year.
Yeah.
And Marvin Mims made him look pathetic. He was a literal liability, Noah. And in fact, when you look at the coverage grades, I know PFF ain't the Bible, but I love PFF. I think that they do a hell of a job over there. Guys like Trevor Sakema and Dalton Wasserman, they're incredible at what they do. He was last on the entire team in coverage grade. And
no, he was last in the entire NFL in coverage grade.
Oh, see, I was looking at the Colts. I didn't even see that.
You are true, but also, yeah, I think he did rank 111th out of 111 DBs in terms of coverage grades. So yeah,
that's like so bad. You can't tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong. You cannot look at that one game and say, oh, he had an off game. He was the worst cornerback in the NFL. There was at one point I was like, they need to put Jonathan Edwards in there.
Yep.
They need to do something because this is going to be a blood bath. And they kept targeting him over and over and over again, and they were winning seemingly every time. So what do you think Anarumo might do with Xavier Howard? I will be honest. I personally think unless the next man up, a guy like Jonathan Edwards, shows, okay, there's no way you can start. I think you need to have Xavier Howard sit the next game. I really do. He looked like absolute buns. Terrible.
Yeah. We'll get into like the first half. I think was the worst of it there for Xavier Howard. Obviously, that Mims touchdown was over his head. Then that drive,
also missed tackles.
And then that drive where he had those 3 consecutive penalties down there in the red zone. Not all bad calls. I know the fans were pretty upset because of some missed defensive pass interferences on the Broncos side. The one on Alec Pierce. I mean, there's some missed calls. So Colts fans were a little bit bitter when the calls were all going the Broncos' way, but they were going that way because they were earned, to be honest. Xavier Howard, was especially that there was a holding penalty on the tight end in the end zone where I don't even think he needed to touch him, and he would have been pretty well covered. But wraps around his waist and gives him that automatic first down there, and I think that was the third. Honestly, if it was a different coordinator and you were in a different position with your personnel, you would kind of maybe expect there to be a hot swap there and him to sit out for the rest of the game and move on with somebody else. I don't know if I really expected that with Lou Anarumo, who has historically wanted to go with these proven older guys. It's unlikely that he would turn to an undrafted rookie who hasn't played any legitimate snaps in the NFL. So, I just think for the rest of that game, you were going to roll with Xavier Howard, and that's what they ended up doing. Unfortunately, you're kind of in that situation still, like concussion protocol with Charvarius Ward if he's back, which could happen, could not happen. I'm not going to bank on any timeline for that.
Yeah.
I think you just kind of have to operate under the assumption that you need to be prepared if he's not going to be out there in week 3. In that situation, you're playing Mekhi Blackmon and Jonathan Edwards, and that's the exact situation that Lou Anarumo didn't want to turn to there in week 2 when Xavier Howard was getting all those penalties. So I'm not sure there's an imminent change coming. If Charvarius Ward is out there, I do think you should consider. I mean, I would personally just call it at that point and go with Mekhi Blackmon there and give the young guy some snaps. But he's shown a reluctance to move on from guys like that. But I'm not going to say I don't see it getting any better because I can't see it getting any worse than the performance that we had against the Broncos. But I don't think you're going to get back to a standard of cornerback play in week 1. Maybe we could have gotten away with it. And you were kind of thinking, hey, he didn't look too bad, but he was really largely untested. The Dolphins weren't throwing to the outside very often. As soon as you came across a team who was willing to throw it to the outside, he got exposed early and often. And I think now that's on tape, like we mention all the time with Bortolini and Gonsalves. If they show any weakness on tape, defensive coordinators are going to attack that.
Oh, yeah.
Xavier Howard went out there and showed a weakness on tape, and offensive coordinators are going to be the ones now looking to target him. So I think, moving forward, it's nice to take that target off your back, go with somebody in Mekhi Blackmon, who is a little bit more solid for you outside on the corner spot opposite Charvarius Ward.
Yeah, and I do want to end with this. This is not to bury Xavier Howard, right? It's not to every cornerback, every player can have just an absolutely craptacular performance. Everybody can do it. But when you are a former two-time NFL leader in picks, you're a former Pro Bowler, you're a former All-Pro, and you were brought over here because you were familiar with Louis Anarumo's scheme. You know, you were in front of the media saying things about Tua like we knew exactly what he was doing. As soon as we took away his first read, he was panicking. You're the guy that was the face of that comment. And this is not one of the top wide receiver cores you're going to face. And they went out there and absolutely made you look silly. And it wasn't Cortland Sutton that did it to you. It was Marvin Mims and Troy Franklin that did it to you. So we'll see. We'll see. It's going to be very interesting to keep a very close eye. I know we will keep a very close eye on that injury report because it's going to be all in Travarius Ward. And there is one last thing I want to mention just because of Tina Hauser down there. You know, Cam Bynum, I have no idea what goes on in that man's head when he has a turnover. But I will tell you right now, Noah, and I just want to get your thoughts on this really, really quick before we head out. This guy might be one of the most energetic locker room guys, maybe the most hilarious player.
Yeah.
In the NFL. I mean, he took a football, put it in his jersey, and then started doing some hip thrusts like Blue. And I mean, and then everyone else started doing little hip thrusts. I was in my living room by myself laughing my ass off. What do you think about Cam Bynum?
Yeah, Cam Bynum. I'm glad we're ending something on a positive note here instead of all doom and gloom. I mean, the Colts are 2-0. You got to end with something happy. So yeah, we'll talk about Cam Bynum bringing some great energy to the Colts and the Colts defense. There was an interview with Kenny Moore after the game talking about how Cam Bynum just kind of changes the energy of the room and mentioning how difficult it is to be like that as a defensive back when things aren't going your way like that. If you're getting beat in the passing game, it's hard just to keep that energy level up. And Cam Bynum's just as well as he's played on the field, and he's played really well. I mean, he's had, I think, 2 targets where he's been the closest defender in coverage and came away with picks on both of them. Yeah. I'm not going to overreact to that because both of them, if those were accurate throws, wouldn't have even been pass deflection. So he a little bit fortuitous, but he's in the right spot at the right time, and he's back there making plays, and that's all you can ask. And both of those plays were turning points in the game. So yeah, excited to see that going forward and just really want to see more celebrations and see him get involved and keep the defense amped up. I think we've mentioned before, having guys like that have a little bit of swagger and energy to the defense was sorely needed after the just kind of goose eggs that they were laying last season. So you want to see guys like that come in, keep the energy levels up, keep guys football's more fun when you're watching a team that's having fun. When you're seeing Kenny Moore go out there and do his tie celebration after he gets a sack and Cam Bynum impersonating Blue, you want to see that energy kind of be infectious throughout the whole team. So I think, that saves them on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, hey, at the end of the day, this Colts team is one to watch. This Colts team is fun to watch. This Colts team has definitely invigorated fans and gotten fans more interested than I've seen fanfare interested in this team in quite a long time. But that is our show, ladies and gentlemen. Don't forget to like the Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook. Follow Indianapolis Colts on SI to see all of our written content. We're hard at work. And on X, we are at Colts_SI. Of course, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube. At the Horseshoe Huddle, click the bell to turn on all the notifications. If you want to listen to the Horseshoe Huddle podcast, well, guess what? Noah's got us covered on Apple, on Spotify, wherever else you absorb your podcast. Now, we will be right back here to preview a massive AFC South showdown with the Tennessee Titans. I'm going to end with this. I saw a comment in there. I saw it where you guys were like, they don't stand a chance. Never, ever say that about any divisional opponent, okay? I'm telling you, these teams fight each other twice a year. They know each other real, real well. And Cam Ward, he might not have the stats to show it, but he is I think he looks great. I think that he's going to be a really bright kid. He's going to have a good career in the NFL. It's just going to be all about if his receivers can actually link up with what the heck he's trying to do. So tune in. We're going to preview that game. But until then, everybody, enjoy Victory Monday. Enjoy the Victory Week. And we will see you again on Thursday right here to give you all of the stuff, all Colts. See you then.